Well, let's get some analysis now with migration specialist Giuseppe Sciortino. He's a professor of sociology at the University of Trento in Italy. Good to have you with us, Professor. This new information and data would cast doubt on the Greek authorities' version of events, claiming that this migrant boat didn't want to be rescued. In fact, it was sailing along to Italy and didn't want any other rescue ship to intervene. Do you believe Greek authorities should have intervened earlier and come to the rescue of this boat?
Well, good morning. It's actually very difficult to say because the evidence is very contradictory and I think is very incomplete, at least from what people can read from the newspapers. What we can say is the accounts that have been provided in these days are highly contradictory. And surely a thoughtful investigation is needed in comparison to such a tragedy. It's difficult to make hypotheses because clearly these kind of operations and this kind of tragedies have been repeating several times with different causes. Clearly, often refugees don't want to be recorded in Greece because that's according to Dublin rules, root them in Greece instead of making them able to reach northern countries where often the relatives live. On the other side, in other cases about the Greek coastguard repelling boat usually to Turkey. The boat apparently was coming from Libya, so in this case would be different. Now, repelling boats is supposed to be illegal, but on the other side, there has been several reports of that. And there has been clearly pressures from the European Union to be strong at the borders. So as far as this single element, I think the only stuff that public opinion could say is that an investigation is needed. It's really strongly needed to understand what happened.
That's right. And in fact, sorry to interrupt you there. And yes, the United Nations has called for an investigation into this incident as well. But as you say, Greece has been accused of illegally pushing back boats trying to get to its shores. Many investigations done by our network, as well as the New York Times and others, have found evidence of this. Clearly, this is a problem. Do you think it's something that Greece needs to stamp out right away, and perhaps the European Union needs to come down more strongly on Greece with regards to these illegal pushbacks?
Look, it's very difficult in the sense, okay, this stuff shouldn't be done. On the other side, if they don't do it, very likely migration pressures at the border of the Union, and in Greece particularly, would increase again significantly. Bringing back memories of those years, 2015, 2016, in which the whole European Union was put in peril by the pressure of arrival of unwanted asylum seekers. So it's difficult. This is basically a consequence of Schengen rules and Dublin rules in a way. So this is a tragedy, but within this tragedy, you can see the contradiction of having a very liberal asylum regime within the borders and a very restrictive migration regime outside of the border. Because this is what makes the European Union visible in the world scheme. From one side, if people file for asylum inside the borders of the Union, they get, I would say, a fair treatment most of the time. There are cases, but the problem is that in order to have this liberal regime inside, the European Union is very strict on letting people who could be potential asylum seeker inside. Okay. This is something which happened with visa policy, which is very restrictive, which country from which a refugee comes from. And you can see on border guards.
Yes. Professor Giuseppe Sciortino, we will have to leave it there, but really appreciate your analysis. Thanks again for joining us.
Thanks a lot. Bye.